What's up, y'all? You're listening to the Brazos Sports Preps Cast. I'm Alex Miller, joined always by Andrew Tenio and Jake Weiss. Fellas, what's going on?
District race is starting to get tight. Things are starting to kind of gel itself out, so I'm really excited to see this week will be another one of those where we kind of figure out playoff spots, seedings, and we'll get more to it later. But this one is we're getting down the home stretch of the season. That's when district really starts to get tight with those playoff spots.
Yeah, Jake.
It's almost Halloween.
Yeah.
Who are you dressing up as for Halloween?
Don't have a costume yet, but if anyone's got any suggestions, maybe next week, who knows, maybe next week I can come on the podcast if people send in suggestions or something.
I don't want to get too far away, but we do have 3 games on Halloween. I'm curious, are we allowed to dress up for our games that we cover? I don't know if that's something we'll be allowed to do.
Should you dress up as the coach that you're covering that night? If you're covering College Station, you got to wear a bright yellow shirt.
Coach may yell at me for that. I don't know.
I'm going to look like the Florida State fan. I don't know if y'all saw that this weekend, but the guy with the Waffle House sheet and no shirt in the stands, that's going to be me.
All right. Well, hey, yeah, big slate of games this week that really have some district and playoff seeding implications. Let's start with Bryan and Temple. Jake, you were there last Friday when Bryan lost to Colleen Shoemaker. That was a game we talked about last week being a really big one for the Vikings, of course, and just couldn't get it done. Now they're kind of in a precarious spot where, Temple's a team that's really had Bryan's number. Bryan beat the brakes off of them last year. Temple had a really bad team, let's just be honest, and now Bryan's kind of in a spot where they need to go to Temple again and get a big dub over the Wildcats.
Yeah, you said it perfectly there. I know last week I said, I said everybody too. I said preface, I don't think, I don't want to overreact, but I felt like last week was must win. They didn't do that. Well, now this week, if you didn't think last week was a must win, this week really is a must win game because we're gonna have a district standings. A couple teams in that district can clinch playoff spots this week, and pretty much everybody that's ahead of Bryan can clinch a playoff spot, I believe, this week because I think 3 is kind of the magic number. Harker Heights has already clinched with 4. Colleen Shoemaker can clinch with a win this week. And if you remember, Colleen Shoemaker was 1-2 going into last week's game. So if they win this week, Colleen Shoemaker, that is, they clinch a playoff spot. Temple's 2-1. So if Bryan can't beat Temple, Temple clinches a playoff spot. So I'm pretty sure if Bryan doesn't win this week, they're locked out. I don't want to for sure 100% say that because obviously you got to wait to see how some other teams shake out in that district. Teams could lose. Shoemaker could go on the road. They're at Copper's Cove, I believe. They could lose. So Bryan could still be in it. But if you're Bryan, you'd much rather feel good about, you taking care of your business rather than having to hope and kind of, scoreboard watch, if you can call it that. So, yeah, really big game for Bryan this week. And like you said, hey, they probably are going to feel pretty confident going in. They beat Temple last year. I know kind of during the preseason, that was a game that both coaches and players really talked about. It was like, hey, we really felt like we got things going in that Temple game. That was a big boost of confidence. So I don't think Bryan's going to feel too bad about last week's result coming into this one. I actually feel they're going to be feeling pretty confident, or they at least should be feeling pretty confident, especially after last year's result.
Andrew, you were over at Brenham and Rudder last week. Brenham got the job done with another big game from Jacoby Dixon. Shocker that he was the guy that helped them get the win. Curious to see how Rudder responds this week at home against Belton. What are you seeing from the Rangers going into this one?
Yeah, and so I got to see the Jacoby Dixon experience in person.
Did he live up to the hype?
New shock, he is for real. 248 rushing yards, had 5 catches for 85 passing or receiving yards, so he can do a little bit of both. 31-10 was the final score. I think it may have been a little bit of a deceiving final score. I do feel like Rudder in the second half, more specifically in the passing game, got some success going. Javen Jesse did get a little more comfortable. They may have left some points on the board. They had turnover on downs in the red zone. If they score there, I think they'd be a little bit more interesting. But I think this is a situation where Rudder can make a bounce-back game. Dixon was the difference. I also feel like the Brenham offensive and defensive lines were able to have their way a little bit during moments of that game. But if you're Rudder, you don't come out of that game too upset. I mean, it's a top 10 team in the state for a reason. They kind of played like it. But now you get a team in Belton, which, has been a good program the last couple of years. This year's kind of been a flash in the pan in terms of just not quite gone their way, but I think they won their own district last year. 2 years ago, they made the playoffs. They were in the district with Brian and them a couple years back when they were in 6A. But they lost a lot of guys to just graduations. They're having a lot of, I think, quarterback, running back, and receiver are all sophomores. They've got young guys they're bringing in. Had a tough non-district, too. They played up a lot. They played Georgetown and Hendrickson. But no, this should be a Belton team that you look at it. They may be 0-7, but they played some really some good teams competitively. They were a one-score game with University. I think they were leading at one point against University in the fourth quarter last week. So a team that look on paper, they don't look flattering with the record, but I do think they have some good talents, and I think they're coming a long way from where they began the year. So.
A&M Consolidated, they're hosting Bastrop Cedar Creek on homecoming, I believe, for the Tigers.
It is.
This is a game that Consol should probably win pretty handedly. That's not the storyline of the week going in. It's the fact that they're getting a pretty key piece back to their team. Jake, give us a little insight.
Yeah, so Colin Schmeller is going to be back. I know we've talked about him before. Heck, we had him on our little I guess we talked to him in the preseason. We did a video with him. I don't know if that was part of the Preps cast. Are a preseason interviews part of the Preps cast or no?
Sure.
Okay, there we go. Point is, he's finally back. He's been on the shelf for 8 weeks. Had a little bit of a quad injury. He's not 100% back, and let me explain about what I mean by that before alarm bells start ringing off. But he just won't be kicking. He's hoping to kind of slowly work his way back to kicking. Still kind of strengthening up the quad a little bit there, but he will be able to play at wide receiver. Which, hey, if you remember, for folks that might not remember this, coming into this season, he was their leading receiver, I think, in receptions, yards, and touchdowns as well.
Yeah, as a returning player.
As a returning player. But kind of two guys they were really looking for to kind of lead that receiver room were him and Darius Roberts. And I'd say Cam Vines a little bit somewhat, too, since they had moved him over. Mm-hmm. But, they were really expecting him to kind of lead those wide receivers now. I mean, heck, I think he would have been the only senior wide receiver besides Cam Vines that they had coming into the year. That really had a lot of experience, so it's good to have him back. He thinks kind of he'll maybe play, 10, 15 plays, kind of slowly ease him back in, but a really big boost for them. For the Tigers and himself, I know he's been really wanting to come back.
We see him on the sideline every week, and he's just like, I can't wait to get back.
Exactly. It's funny. We got a funny quote from him, and I'm doing a feature story on him that's coming back about him coming back, and he's got a funny line in there that was like, "Yeah, I've never was more excited to jog than a couple weeks ago," which just I just was in stitches. I was just laughing so hard when he said that. But no, really big boost for the Tigers. It's his homecoming and it's their homecoming. So
there you go. Hey, College Station, they're hosting Lockhart. Cougars probably a big favorite over the Lions. Last week, it took them a little bit of time to pull away from Buda Hayes, but once it seemed like they got into a groove on both sides of the ball, College Station started to take care of business. And, as they come down this home stretch, they've only got 2 games left because they got the bye week at the end of the season. Yeah. So, next week's going to be a big game for them against Pflugerville Weiss. That's shaping up to be what we've talked about for second and third place in the district. And so if you're College Station, you want to take care of business this week, make sure you're healthy, and be going into that. It's a Thursday night game, too, so a short week. You want to be going in there clicking on all cylinders. So curious to see how the Cougars come out on Friday night.
I was going to say they don't need to be like me and look ahead to Halloween because, if they do that, they'd be in trouble.
Might see a ghost.
Exactly. No, but yeah, like you just said, take care of your business. Go 1-0 this week. That's pretty much the game plan for College Station. And I think they should be able to execute that, but I'm sure the coaching staff, if they think anybody's not, someone's looking ahead to the next week, they'll get them in line.
Yeah. Well, Brazos Christian, hey, heartfelt story last Friday with Isaiah Perkins playing the week of his mother passing away from breast cancer. We certainly wish our prayers and thoughts to the Perkins family during this time. But a huge win for the Eagles over Central Texas Christian. And now Brazos Christian is in the driver's seat for that district. Going to have some tough games coming up still. Got Shiner St. Paul this week. And they think they have Hallettsville Sacred Heart here coming up pretty soon.
Right. Yeah.
So, some big games to be won, but You got through the one that might end up being the toughest. How do they go and respond on the road this week against Shiner St. Paul, which has been a pretty good team down in the private school ranks traditionally? So, well, hey, guys, there's a ton of very impactful games in the Valley this week. What are a few that you've got your eye on going into this Friday?
Andrew, you can go first.
I'm really interested to see what I think one of Lexington's biggest competitions so far to this point in Blanco. They did a really good job against Thrall a couple weeks ago. But Lexington is a team that, is still 7-0. I don't want to say they're the most underrated 7-0 team in the area because, there isn't that many, but I feel like week in and week out, they just handle their business. Blanco may be one of the biggest challenges they have this year so far. Curious to see what they come out and look like in a game like this.
Jake?
The Battle of the Bell.
The Battle of the Bell. That is a huge one, actually.
Yeah, I was going to say, I know it's still early in that district. Rockdale's 0-2, Cameron's 1-1. But, this one, I think for Cameron's sake, I haven't looked at the top to bottom of the entire district there. We know Franklin's probably going to be the top dog in that district, or at least the top dog in terms of, who to beat. Right
Both
now.
of them still have to play Franklin.
Exactly, yeah. So a long ways to go still. But for both of them, this is another one where we talked about this with Leon and Iola a couple weeks ago, where it's kind of a similar matchup where I feel like this one you could look back. It's a rivalry game, so kind of enough said. But it's another one where I feel like someone might look at that at the end of the year. The loser of that and the winner might be like, man, good thing we won that game because, it helped us get in the playoffs. Or if you're the loser, man, if we had just beat those guys, we'd be in the playoffs right now. So big game there. It's going to be a good rivalry matchup. I'm just excited to see who wins it on that one Friday night.
Yeah, Rockdale really needs a win because if they lose with Troy and Franklin coming up, it's going to be pretty tough to get into the playoffs with that lineup. So they would probably need 2 wins to get into the playoffs at that point. So Rockdale in big need of a win. Cameron obviously too. But I think Rockdale, there's a little more urgency knowing what's coming up through the next couple games.
100%.
So Burton, they're in District 13, 2A Division 2. There are 2 really big games. Mm-hmm. Burton and Milano, and Iola and Snook. And Milano and Iola are in a pretty similar spot where I think they're both 2-2 in the district. And it's kind of in a must-win territory to stay alive for the playoff race.
Yeah, I was going to say, because at the top you've got Somerville. Then you've got Burton and Granger.
They're 3-1.
3-1 each. And then, I think Iola, Milano, and I want to say...
Is it Bartlett?
Bartlett is also 2-2.
Yeah.
Both of them need wins this week. Burton, even if Burton could use a win too, but if you're Burton, you're 3-1. You're a little above that 4 spot. You're feeling, probably pretty comfortable where you are right now. But yeah, both of those teams really need wins this week to stay in that playoff hunt. And I'd say Milano probably needs it a little bit more than Iola does, and just because they've already played each other and Iola beat Milano, they already played and. Yeah, I was doing all the math in my head. They've already played, so I think Iola would have a tiebreaker. So both of those teams needs wins, but it's gonna be tough. I think, especially for Milano. Burton, we know what Burton can do. It's gonna be a tough uphill sledding for them, I think.
Yeah, I don't know if this is a game we would have necessarily put as much attention on last week. But I don't know, something about Leon at Hearn smells a little interesting. Leon coming off of the tough loss against Centerville this past week. Hearn kind of putting it together offensively. They put up 42 points this past week.
Yeah, where did that come from?
Yeah, Darian Mitchell kind of just came out of nowhere, and he was really good for them on both sides of the ball. So I don't know. I don't know. I'm a little curious at that one. I know the records are a little lofty with Leon at 5-2 and Hearn getting their first win last week. But that one kind of caught my eye a little bit. Home game for Hearn. Curious if they can kind of build upon that success last week against Camden.
Yeah, absolutely. If you're the Eagles, you're looking at that one thinking, hey, got some momentum. Leon's coming off a tough loss.
You got nothing to lose.
you're kind of playing with house money, and you go and win a game, and all of a sudden you're in the thick of the playoff hunt and could be battling for a 2 or a 3 seed, even though they're 1-6. So, and hey, before we wrap this up, how about Somerville? Win of the week over Granger. Not only did they win 32-15. I mean, it was convincing.
Yeah, I have a funny line from Coach Roberts. I talked to Coach Roberts this week.
I was going to say.
Favorite, probably line of the week. I mean, I know it's only Tuesday, so there's still plenty of time for a coach to give me another great quote. But, I asked him, hey, what's it been like around town? And he said, hey, at the games, coaches, we don't really pay attention, to the crowd noise. The crowds have been great. Noise has been great. That Burton game, he said he heard people were saying it was one of the loudest games they've ever been to, but he really can't pay attention to that. He's on the sideline coaching, but where he does notice it, every day he goes to the convenience store, he gets a thumbs up, and but that's not all, because I asked him, well, okay, anything else, and he goes, well, I haven't started getting free stuff yet, I haven't reached that status yet, but we're close, so who knows, I think if he joked too, he was like, hey, I think if we win, maybe if we win by district, I think I might start getting some free stuff from the convenience store. So I know they're a couple weeks away from that, but hopefully Somerville can stay hot, and who knows, maybe if they win a district title. I got this from you actually first. 1983 was their last district title, so maybe if they can keep winning and win that district title, he might be getting some free, some stuff from the convenience store.
41 years.
Party like it's 1983.
Party like it's 1983. Well, hey, that's going to do it this week for us on the Brazos Sports Prepscast. Be sure to check theeagle.com for all of our coverage on high school football in the Brazos Valley this week. We'll see you next week. Thanks, y'all.